Good afternoon, everybody. We're a few minutes after noon, so I think we'll get underway. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Lanny McGinnis. I'm President and CEO of the Manitoba Home Builders Association, and welcome to the fourth MHBA virtual technical session of 2021. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We've got a very interesting topic, definitely the top of mind topic for every member of ours. So before we get underway, just some minor housekeeping notes before we begin. If you could please ensure that your microphone is muted at all times for the consideration of our speaker and the other attendees. We'd very much appreciate that. Thank you. And if you have any questions during today's presentation, please type your questions into the chat box. And you can do that by clicking the chat icon at the top right of your screen, the little word bubble there. Just go ahead, click on it, type in your question, and we'll be monitoring the chat for your questions. We'll have plenty of time for questions after today's presentation. And so let's kick things off. I'd like to invite Andrew Reimer from Alfab and from our board of directors to introduce today's speaker. Andrew.
Thank you very much, Lanny. As Lanny had mentioned, my name is Andrew Reimer. I'm with Alfab Building Components, and I'm very excited to introduce today's Lunch and Learn speaker, Liz Kovach. Liz joined the WRLA almost 5 years ago and is committed to evolve the WRLA to the best association it can be for its members and associated partners. Her commitment to the best interest of members is evident in the relationships established, increased awareness of the industry and advocacy work, which continues to strengthen the WRLA's relationship with government and industry stakeholder groups. In Liz's spare time, she's very involved in the Hungarian community, and she also enjoys spending time out at the lake with her husband Jeff, stepdaughter Tegan, and their family pup Lucy. Swimming, running, cycling, fishing, and chopping wood are among Liz's favorite pastimes and hobbies. So I wish you all to join me in welcoming Liz and thanking her for her time today. Liz, over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you so much, Lanny. I had to put something in a hobby related to it. I felt like working for an association that deals with forestry products, it's only apropos to have that. Thank you all for joining us today. As we all know, there's been a lot of challenges in this past year, and quite frankly, we wouldn't be experiencing this if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. And I'm glad to be able to work with you and be able to provide some information and obviously answer any questions that you may have. I will do my best to answer any questions that you do have, but if I do have to take some away, then I will gladly do that as well. As you know, we're in a volatile situation. Things are changing on a regular basis. So if there is an answer I can't get to today, I will certainly send that to you. One of the key things I like to focus on at the very beginning of my presentations, and although this is not a current reflection of where we are today, is to really showcase what historical lumber prices look like. Emotions have been extremely high. We've experienced unprecedented pricing in this past year, and it's something that we have not encountered in the past, which is really what I wanted to showcase with this slide. RBC Dominion Securities is a partner of ours, and they follow the lumber piece extremely closely, as lumber is a commodity. And I think there's a lot of people out there, both in the general marketplace or maybe some new folks to the industry, that didn't realize that lumber products are a commodity and they are traded on the stock market. This gives a pretty good overview of where lumber prices typically are, and that's not where we are right now, but this is also to showcase that there is some sort of level of normalcy that there has been in the past that we could potentially get back to in the future as well. Just to give you a quick timeline, I don't want to spend too much time on this, as some of you may have already seen this in the past, but there is, lumber is not a boom and bust industry. The forestry industry is not set up that way. It is set up for sustainability, as we know. And some of the key issues from the past that are impacting our current situation now are the mountain pine beetle, which took out 2 billion board feet from forestry products. So that's raw fiber that cannot be processed right now. And of course, the forest fires that impacted us in 2018. Boom and bust doesn't work for the natural forestry industry, and a lot of the questions that we've had in this past year, well, isn't there an opportunity to bring back some of the mills to production that were closed as a result of the salvage operation that was approved in BC? And the answer to that is no, because of their location and proximity to the actual fiber that needs to be processed. So we've been working at the capacity that we have, and some of you may have followed that there are some lumber mills that still close despite where we are at in terms of pricing. There are lumber mills that did not necessarily survive the situation that we've been in. This normally would not have been an issue except for the fact that we're in a pandemically driven state and economy where people had disposable income, or those that had disposable income were not able to travel and partake in those normal activities that they would in a typical year, which really did fuel some of the demand. And one other key area that I wanted to also touch on is stumpage fees. The government of BC sells logs to the mills. Stumpage fees are calculated based on some of the past pricing. And obviously right now, log prices are high, and the government is obviously going to be happy about that, particularly now when so many pieces of the economy have been closed, that there is some revenue coming in to support some of their programming. Enter COVID. When you speak with a lot of the mills, there was recovery after the forest fires had taken place, and everyone was sort of expecting that we'd be heading into a business as usual type environment in 2020. Bookings from the dealer perspective have to be supplied by October and November, so materials that they plan to sell in the spring and in the summer to fuel projects all need to be placed by that timeline. And this is where communication is always really important in terms of needs, because the projections are important. And I think after this last year, certainly it'll be interesting to see what projections look like in the future. Businesses were preparing for business as usual environment, and no one expected this to happen. Then March came, and we've had massive disruptions. And if you can think back to where we were last March, demand for product fell off of a cliff. You saw transportation companies furloughing their employees, and the industry was preparing for closure until our industries were deemed as essential and needed to continue. So mills were forced to stop manufacturing. Obviously, they had to liquidate the supply that they had, and it took weeks, 2 to 6 weeks, before people could come back to work. And even then, the manufacturing couldn't go back to 100% capacity because of physical distancing requirements that took place. Obviously, that put us into a huge backlog, and it's very difficult to get caught up on that piece. But the industry has been working as hard as it can and back to 100% to make sure that it can continue to move forward. Of course, the odd situation might happen where there needs to be maintenance or there is a fire that could also slow down production as well. And last March, when you look back to where we were, the pricing dropped to $282 per 1,000 board feet, which is extremely low, and obviously we haven't seen that since. Some of the other issues that go into the whole lumber harvesting, just as information so that you have this as part of the supply chain, is weather does impact the ability to harvest logs. Depending on what the conditions are like, trucks may not be able to actually harvest that product, and it certainly can create some backlogs. Transportation was a huge issue, and it still continues to be in so many ways, whether it's rail, whether it's trucking, whether it's sea vessels that are bringing containers from across different areas. There's been a lot of issues on that piece. Employees were furloughed, and if you look at companies that have collective bargaining agreements like CN, for example, they had 15 days to report back to work, or were given 15 days to report whether they're going to come back to work. And of course, they have to go through all their training. So that created a lot of delays. And I know that our mills were hoping that they could get back to full capacity in July 1st. However, that didn't happen, and it wasn't until after Labor Day that the rail really was able to get caught up with what was needed. So obviously, if they were asking for a certain amount of cars, if they had the material that was ready, what that impact meant is that if there was not enough cars to transport the finished material, it created delays and obviously further backlogs. CERB was an issue. I think a lot of you might have experienced that to some extent, and it continues to be an issue as not everyone has reported back to work. And the lack of backhauls on the trucking side also created delays. It made it really difficult for Manitoba and Saskatchewan to get material with trucks. It was easy for them to decline those jobs if there wasn't a backhaul for them to take back. Some of the other current realities that we're looking at is our economy is very much a global economy. The supply chain disruptions continue, and the following root causes are mostly raw material availability, transportation, and labor. And we've heard a lot about resins. Resins are used for so many different products, whether it's paper, whether it's for PVC, whether it's for plumbing, whether it's for engineered wood products. Anything that the resins are synthesized have been a huge issue and still have not yet recovered, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We've got other raw materials that are on shortage, and that then creates a backlog for material. Transportation is still an issue. We've heard about port congestion, shortages that are literally plaguing the supply chain. You've got backlogs of loads not being unloaded, and then there's the container issue as well. And this has been a huge problem. Many of you have probably heard that the actual container cost has gone up 300 to 400% in terms of what's being charged, and it's not guaranteed to leave the port, and it's not guaranteed to get to its destination on time. And this has been a huge challenge. We have met with Transport Canada on this piece because there are some product lines who just don't have the ability to even pay that escalated price because the margins are not there for them to do so. And even still, if they do, there's no guarantee that product is going to make it. So we are still waiting to find out what some of the steps are being taken to help alleviate this issue. I don't have an update as of yet. I did follow up yesterday with the folks that we met with just to see if there's any steps that the government is taking to help create some alleviation in this area. And the labor side of things, this is a little bit less of an issue now, but with the odd outbreaks that do happen, it does sometimes cause closure at some manufacturing facilities and at the ports as well. So it'll create some delays. In terms of resins, I honestly never thought that a storm in Texas would have such an impact on the global supply chain, but it has. A majority of the petrochemical plants that synthesize the resins that go into engineered wood products, into windows, into basically a lot of the containers that we used have been impacted. And slowly but surely, the plants are coming back online. Last week, we were at 47 that were still offline. 37 still need to come back online of the 168 chemical plants that were forced to close. Relief is not expected until the fall on this piece, as they're still not up and running at 100% capacity. And it is a situation that we are following on a weekly basis. I can tell you that the engineered wood products are at such low demand, high demand, they're on allocation, and any available product is going to be allocated to new builds. And when it comes to the pricing side of things, OSB and plywood are still also very high because they need the resins in order to produce the product, and again, on allocation and still waiting for recovery on that piece. Glass has been another issue, and I didn't know this until obviously we were in this situation, but a lot of the glass that is used to create fiberglass insulation is actually recycled glass from restaurants, pubs, those types of things. And with the close down of all of those, the hospitality sector, there has been a shortage of recycled glass. So that certainly had an impact, and we're slowly getting caught up on that. The lead times still continue to be 30 days, but it is definitely better than where we were a few months ago. There's also a worldwide shortage on 3mm glass, which is used for windows, it's used in the automotive industry, and it's obviously causing a lot of backlogs and delays. While there is some material available overseas, if you go back to where we are with the containers, it's very difficult to get that material across the ocean into Canada, so creating further delays on the windows and the door side of things. And if we look at lumber, which is everyone's number one topic to speak about, the general supply is improving, but it is definitely not near where the industry is used to. We were noticing that there is starting to be a slowdown in the DIY demand as people are getting back to normal. They're now spending a little bit less money on doing their do-it-yourself projects, which is good news, obviously, for the construction industry as well, because hopefully that means supply is going to quickly increase. Stud supply has improved, but is not as readily available as some of the other random lengths material. Machine stress rated products are also in tight supply for truss production, and the plates for trusses are also in severe allocation, so the ability to produce trusses at a quicker pace has not yet happened. Again, engineered wood products is tight on allocation, and there is no indication of improvement until we can get caught up onto demand. So we're expecting this to continue on for a few months. Plywood and OSB are still in tight supply, and this is as a result of the resin issue. And we've noticed that pricing is starting to come down, and we are starting to see some of that back to normal. But with the amount of construction products that are, or projects that are still continuing, there is an expected rebound in the market. So just something to be aware of as we move forward. In terms of gypsum, there are severe supply constraints, and a major plant breakdown in Canada has created a 4-week delay as well, which obviously doesn't help when you're in this type of a situation. And the other piece that still continues to wreak a little bit of havoc is when we do have a plant that goes down, it's not easy for us to source product from south of the border because of the 2017 tariffs that were implemented, and it makes it impractical for manufacturers to bring in any supply from the US. On the insulation side of things, we have seen quicker lead times, but the prices still have continued to increase. The resins, the glass shortage, all of that has contributed to this, and the demand continues to outstrip the supply. And like many of you, we were really excited to see that there is a grant from the federal government on the energy efficiency side of things, but right now it kind of adds a little bit of fuel to the fire if that's what some of the projects that are being quoted on for those types of products. Lead times have improved, but they are not back to normal and are expected to stay this way for a little bit longer at least. Current realities for the dealer segment of the supply chain, they're still on product allocation from a lot of their suppliers, and it simply has to do with the raw material shortage and the manufacturers trying to make sure that they're spreading the love, for lack of a better word, around to all of their regions that they're supplying products to. Producers are working at max capacity where possible to get caught up, but we're still in that time frame of the demand outstripping supply. Continued volatility is expected until at least July, and we're almost at July, and we're projecting this to continue to go on. And one of the things that we've tried to communicate when it comes to government and any communications we've had is that there needs to be a level of urgency to get back to normal. I think that's really the biggest crux right now, is we need to start getting back to normal so regular pace can continue on. We can flush through the issues through the supply chain and see some semblance of normal, but it's really difficult until we can get back to that normal pace. And the pending pipeline issue also could put pressure on rail and trucking. So the Line 5 issue between Michigan, you know, they're going to court in terms of whether or not they're going to be able to keep the pipeline going or not. And if it closes, it's going to put a lot more pressure on rail and trucking, which then is going to create further issues for other products in the supply chain, such as building materials and agricultural products. Some of the other issues we've seen in 2021, and you've probably experienced them yourself, is a lot of the thefts that have been taking place. Trucks have been hijacked, stolen with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of material, and people have been breaking into lumber yards. Obviously, a lot of security enhancements have taken place as a result of that. Something to be aware of, just to make sure that things are not left unattended, just to be on the safe side. And I know a lot of folks have gone to asking for delivery on day of or in bite-sized pieces, just to make sure that the materials that can be consumed in a day are being done so. On the OSB side of things, we've heard that there has been some product that is not CSA approved that's made its way into the Canadian market. There are two types. There is the Jazz grade that's coming in from China, and there's also the Ukrainian grade, which is unstamped completely. We are aware that some folks have been trying to substitute other products with this. However, building inspectors have been asking them to be removed. So just wanted to make sure that we address that any non-CSA approved material, we highly caution you not to use it. And anytime you're looking to substitute any products, which I'm sure Lani has communicated as well, is to check with your building office as well. So that's sort of an overview of where we're at. We will continue to communicate any product issues and supply issues. We have been preparing regular updates, which I know Lani has been including in your newsletter as well. So you've probably seen some of this information. We're here to help. Our industries are completely connected and rely on each other, and we want to make sure that good business practices are in place and that we're able to help everyone get through this as best as we can. And if there's anything that we can do, please let me know and we'll be happy to do that. And I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Great, thanks, Liz. Any questions for Liz? Well, as always, if you have questions or they come up, you can always feel free to contact Liz directly or share them with with us, and we will connect and get those answers to you as soon as we can. Thank you, Liz, so much for sharing your insight with us this afternoon. Like Liz said, the WRLA is a tremendous partner of our association, a member of our association, and Liz has been both a tremendous source of industry information and an exceptionally strong advocate for Manitoba's lumber and building material suppliers, and for our industry as well. And so we really do appreciate you briefing our members today, Liz, and we will definitely be in constant contact as we work through the continued issues with building materials and supply chain. So thank you everyone for attending this afternoon's event. We did record this, so it is available to you. We will be sending out the links to the video, and we look forward to hopefully hosting you all in person this fall for our next technical sessions. That's our hope. That's our goal. We're planning for that. If we can't, we will do them virtually as well. But our hope is to have everyone back in person. And so please keep your eyes on your inboxes for information on the next round of technical sessions, and for especially for details for the 2021 Housing Forum in November. So until then, have a great summer, everyone. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you.